Today, we're smoking burgers, low and slow, with freshly ground beef, then finished with a hard sear and loaded up with caramelized onions and a homemade burger sauce. Let's go. I just picked up a chuck roast for this smoked burger recipe, and I'm cutting into small cubes so it feeds easily through the meat grinder. I chose chuck roast because it naturally gives you that ideal 80-20 lean to fat ratio. That balance is key for a juicy, flavorful burger. And if you're not grinding your own meat, just look for an 80-20 blend at the store. You'll still get great results. Once everything's cut up, I'm popping the meat in the freezer for about 45 minutes. I'm also chilling the grinder attachments. Keeping everything cold is crucial. It helps the meat grind cleanly and prevents smearing. And I also just picked up a new meat grinder from Meat Your Maker. This is the first time I'll be putting it to work, so I'm really curious to see how it handles this cut of meat and what kind of texture it gives me. With grinding, the equipment really makes a difference, so this will be a good test run to see what I'm working with going forward. I'm using the coarse grinding plate to keep the texture nice and loose. I'll run the meat through a couple of passes, just enough to evenly distribute the fat without overworking it. That's the key here. You want those distinct pieces for a better bite, not a dense, packed texture. I'm already pretty impressed by this 500-watt portable grinder. It's compact and easy to set up and doesn't take up much space at all. For something I'm just getting familiar with, it's performing like a champ. Now, I'm forming these into 8-ounce patties, and I'm being careful not to pack them too tight. Keeping them a little loose helps maintain that tender, juicy texture once they're cooked. I'm also shaping them slightly bigger than the bun, since they'll tighten up as they cook. Then, I press a small indent in the center with my thumb. This helps prevent them from puffing up into a meatball shape, since the juices and fat render toward the middle during the cooking. Once they're formed, I'm putting them in the fridge for about 30 to 60 minutes. This firms them up so they hold their shape better on the smoker and helps everything stay intact during the cook. While the patties are chilling in the fridge, I get started on caramelizing the onions. I'm using sweet Vidalia onions. I slice off both ends, cut them straight down the middle, and peel off the skin and that first outer layer. And then, I cut about 1/4-inch slices. Once it gets smaller, I flip them onto their side so I can finish the cut safely and keep everything even. Now, I'm moving to a stainless steel pan over medium heat with a little olive oil. I like stainless steel for this because it builds up those brown bits on the bottom. That's where a lot of the flavor comes from. I add some kosher salt to help sweat down the onions, and from here, it's all about patience. True caramelization isn't fast. I like to give myself around an hour to build that deep color and sweetness. And now for the burger sauce. I like to make this ahead of time so it has at least 30 minutes in the fridge. I'm starting with 1/2 cup of mayonnaise, 3 tablespoons of ketchup, 2 tablespoons of sweet pickle relish, 1 teaspoon of white vinegar, and 1/2 teaspoon of sugar. Then, just a pinch of salt and a pinch of black pepper. I'm also adding about 1/2 teaspoon of Fireshire's Worcestershire sauce. You can also use any Worcestershire sauce you have or leave it out completely. It's totally optional. Once everything is mixed together, I'll let it chill in the fridge so the flavors can really come together for at least 30 minutes. I'm using brioche buns on my gas grill and Yoder griddle. They toast up beautifully. I've got my griddle at about 325 to 350 degrees, so the butter doesn't burn. I add a little butter down first, then move the buns through it to coat evenly. Let them sit, check them occasionally, and pull them once they've got that nice, even golden brown crust. I also do this a little bit in advance, so I'm not scrambling at the last moment. I'm firing up my Yoder YS640 Pellet Grill to 250 degrees and running oak pellets for a classic smoke flavor. I'm going to place the burgers on a wire rack to help with the airflow. I'm keeping the seasoning simple, just salt and pepper, so the quality of the beef really comes through. I flip the burgers over and hit the other side with salt and pepper as well. I'm putting these burgers up on the top shelf of my Yoder YS640. I'm inserting temperature probes so I can track them closely, and I'm letting them smoke until they reach about 120 degrees Fahrenheit internal. That's going to take roughly 45 minutes to get there. Once they hit about 120 degrees Fahrenheit, that's my cue to pull them and move them over to the gas grill, where I'll finish them with a hard sear to build that crust. My goal here today is to land at a perfect medium, around 140 to 145 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's why I'm pulling these at 120 degrees. It gives me some room to work during the sear without overshooting. I've got my Yoder griddle coming up to temperature, and I'm adding a little avocado oil since it handles high heat really well. I spread it out with a spatula so there's an even thin layer across the surface. The goal here is to help build a good crust without the burger sticking. While the burgers are smoking, I take that time to prep the buns. I've got 3 of them here, and I'm adding my burger sauce to both sides. Then, I'm spreading it out so every bite gets some. On the bottom bun, I'm layering on the pickles for a little crunch and acidity. Then, on the top bun, I'm adding those caramelized onions to bring in that deep sweet flavor. From here, they're ready for their burgers. My burgers are temping at 120 degrees Fahrenheit, so I'm going to pull them off the smoker and I'm going to bring them over to the gas grill. My goal is to sear one side until it hits about 130 degrees. Then flip, add the cheese, and finish them around 140 degrees. From there, they'll carry over to about 145 degrees, which should put me right in that perfect medium range with a great crust on the outside. I'm looking for a surface temperature north of 400 degrees Fahrenheit in order to get that deep, even sear on the burger while still controlling the cook. The USDA recommends cooking ground beef to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. I ground this myself, fresh from a whole chuck roast, so I'm comfortable taking it to about 140 to 145 degrees Fahrenheit for a medium burger. But if you're using store-bought, pre-ground beef or aren't sure of the source, stick with 160 to kill all the cooties. I added smoked cheddar cheese to these burgers, which has a subtle smokiness that really complements the beef. We're going to give this a try. This came out great. The meat tastes great. The dill pickles, great. The caramelized onions. Everything works really well together. The sauce, the onions. I'm going for another bite. Really good smoked flavor. Okay, I really like this one. Okay, thanks so much for watching.